Welcome to Sharing Success, the podcast where we turn inspiration into action. I'm Tyson Krager, your host, here to guide you on a journey of growth, motivation, and self discovery. In each episode, I'll share powerful lessons, actionable tips, and uplifting insights to help you achieve your goals and create a life you love. Whether you're here to find clarity, build confidence, or simply get inspired, you're in the right place. Let's start building your success story, one step at a time. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sharing Success, Season 2, Episode 5. I am your host, Tyson Krager, and today, y'all, we are going to dive into a topic that's near and dear to my heart: failure. Yes, the dreaded F word. But instead of seeing failure as an end, I really want to try and challenge you to see it as a necessary part of success. The title to our episode today is Failing Forward: Lessons in Resilience. With that, let's dive into it. Let's get real. We've all been there before. A setback that has truly felt crushing. So it could be a goal that didn't plan out, a business that didn't take off. Maybe it was a relationship that ended, a job you lost, or a dream that seemed to slip through your fingers. But here's the question: what if those failures weren't roadblocks? What if they were actually stepping stones? Today, we're going to talk about failing forward, how setbacks, missteps, and outright flops can shape our growth and lead us to success in ways that we really never expected. So, I'm going to share some personal experience. We'll talk about some stories of some well known figures who turned failure into fuel, and we'll talk about some practical ways to build resilience when things don't go as planned. So, let's hop into it. First off, let's talk about redefining failure, y'all. What is failure really? Well, we do know that society often frames failure as the opposite of success, but that's actually a flawed perspective. Failure isn't the opposite of success. Failure is part of the process. Thomas Edison has this quote. It's my favorite. I love it. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Isn't that so true? We need to shift the way that we look at our perceived failures. They are not an outright failure. I'm trying to think of another word. They're not an outright letdown. They're not an outright disappointment. It's simply something that doesn't work for us. So, if we can reframe our failure as feedback and realize that every failure teaches you something, it could be about your strategy, about your mindset, or even just what you truly want, we will be so much better off. There is this, I can't overemphasize really the importance of detaching your self worth from failure. So, you failed at something, but that doesn't mean you are a failure. And I think that's where so many of us get hung up is we associate our perceived failures as like a discredit to ourselves or a discredit to uh our personality, our authenticity, who we truly are inside, instead of just seeing it for what it really is, which is I tried something and it didn't work. Or I went out there and I put my heart on the line. I tried a new experience. I tried a new job. I decided to look at a different part of myself and delve into that, and it didn't work out. That's really all it is. Like, it's surface level. It's not an indication of who you are as a human being. It's not a testament to your soul. You failed at something. It does not mean that you are a failure. So I really hope that you can kind of work on reframing failure as feedback. And to kind of hop into that, let's talk about me for a second. There, one of my major setbacks in life, I feel like, is when I decided that I wasn't going to go into the career field that I thought I was going to go into since childhood. I was one semester short of graduating with my bachelor's, and I was in the field of elementary education. I was just at the point where I needed to complete my student teaching and wrap things up, and then I was done with my degree. At that same time, I had something kind of paramount happen in my life, something that really changed the trajectory of my life. But alongside that, also, as I was kind of nearing the completion of my degree, I was realizing I don't want to do this. Like, I loved the psychological aspect of teaching. I loved actually being upfront and teaching. But with the age group that I had went into my degree with, it wasn't sitting with me the more that I did it. And so I realized that I probably wanted to teach um, older kids, preferably high school, maybe even something adjunct at a college. I just couldn't get past the demographic that my degree was geared towards. Anyways, long story short, um, around the same time I had this event happen in my life, and also I was coming to the realization of, if I get this degree, I'm not going to want to go into the field that I'm using it in. Um, I had to cope with the fact that I saw myself as a failure. So ultimately, unfortunately, I ended up dropping out of college about one semester before I gained my degree. And I moved across the country. I made this big, fresh start, right? But I could not get myself to go back into teaching. I couldn't. And it's because I have associated that with failure. Even though it's not. I mean, now that I've gotten older, probably, what is it? We're almost 10 years after, well, a little less than 10 years after the fact. I'm starting to reframe that, and I'm starting to realize that I learned so much about myself. And it really wasn't a failure. It was just simply deciding that that wasn't for me. I think a lot of us with ADHD, or a lot of us that are very multi passionate, we're not embracing the parts of us uh, that multi passionate, that hyper focus brings out. Instead, we're looking at our endeavors, our quick and spirited endeavors, as failures. We're not looking at them as, hey, I tried something and I realized that it wasn't for me, or even just surface level. Let's say it for what it is. I tried something and I got burned out. Instead, we're like, man, I can't stick to something. I wish that I was consistent and stuff like that. So, working on realizing that, maybe you do just have a multi-passionate personality, and you like to hyper focus on things for a quick minute and hop to the next. Or maybe you realize, yeah, I went to school for almost 4 years and I learned a lot about myself. Didn't get a degree, but I learned a lot about myself, and I realized that there are certain aspects of, you know, this field that I love, and it helped me to grow as a person. I gained a lot of experiences. Ultimately, I didn't walk away from that situation empty handed, so it's not a failure. It doesn't mean that my self-worth is any less. It doesn't mean that I am less of a person. And I hope that as I'm telling you this very, very long-winded personal story, you can kind of equate that to something of your own, right? Maybe something that is kind of a tough spot for you to talk about or work through, because you perceive um, it as a failure on your part, is not. So, um, if you could think back to a time, that you felt like you failed, just ask yourself, what did I learn from it? If you're comfortable, share it with me on social media or shoot me an email. I would just love to hear how you were able to turn that perceived failure into a stepping stone because you reframed it as feedback. Now, I want to talk about the role of resilience in success. So, what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to bounce back stronger from failure. The key to optimizing our resilience is we have to build a mindset that's based on this cornerstone. We have to build a mindset uh, that can allow us to bounce back from failure. And there's a few ways that we can do that to build a resilience mindset. First, let's get it out of the way. Let's accept that failure is inevitable. It's going to happen, y'all. It's going to happen to the best of us. It's inevitable. If you are going through life, you're being authentic, you're putting your best foot forward, guess what? Some stuff just isn't going to work out, and that's a-okay. So failure is inevitable, and learning to see failure as a temporary detour, not a dead end, not a roadblock, is really going to help to build that resilience mindset. It's going to give you that ability to bounce back quicker because you're not taking it personally. Next, cornerstone of building a resilience mindset, is the power of self-compassion. I don't know what it is about so many of us. We hold ourselves to such a high standard, which is great. It means that we are go-getters. It means that we are success-minded. But the flip side of that also is that we do not give ourselves enough grace. There is so much power in self-compassion, not being so hard on yourself. So, yeah, you failed. Yeah, there was a little you tripped, right? And it's a trip in your journey. It's not you didn't fall and break a leg, it's not detrimental. It's literally a temporary detour. It's absolutely not a dead end. And if you can give yourself some grace, give yourself a pat on the back sometimes instead of taking things so personally, you're going to be able to come back stronger, to bounce back from that failure. And then the last aspect of building a resilience mindset is understanding that even successful people fail repeatedly and they own it. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do right now. Please understand that the people that find success, the only reason that they do so is because they've learned what works for them and what hasn't. My recent favorite is Chapel Roan. If you haven't listened to her, go listen to her music. But a lot of people think that Chapel Roan is new to the music scene, and she's not. She's been doing this for 11 years. She busted her ass for 11 years. And there was even a point several years ago, right before she hit her big break, that she had to move back home. She was out in LA trying to make a name for herself, and she just said, "This isn't working for me. It's not going to work." She moved back home. She got a regular job, and only then did she pop off, right? When she least expected it, she soared to new heights, and she is now one of the most famous pop stars on the planet. So she did not, if she would have let her perceived failure hold her back, and she would have, when she moved home, if she would have stayed there, if she never would have continued on with music, truly, I hate to sound dramatic, but the world would not be what it is today. In Chapel Roan, we trust. Some more examples of famous failures. We have Oprah Winfrey. Did you know that Oprah was fired from her first job as a TV anchor? And get this, they told her that she was not fit for television. They told Oprah Winfrey, one of the biggest TV hosts of all time, that she wasn't fit for television. Walt Disney, he was fired for lacking imagination before he launched his empire. The Walt Disney, Mickey Mouse's creator himself, was told that he didn't have enough imagination. Steve Jobs, he was fired from Apple before he came back stronger than ever. So, all of these stories remind us that failure is often just the beginning of something so, so much greater. Now, we've covered all of the fun stuff. The role of resilience and success. We've talked about redefining failure. Let's talk about how to fail forward. First part is you want to process the emotions, but you don't want to dwell too long. So it's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to feel upset, but we don't want to let that failure define you, because truly, it hasn't changed your soul one bit. It hasn't changed your dreams, your motives, your personality one bit. It's just what it is. It's a temporary disappointment. It's a temporary upset. So find ways to process those emotions. Journal, talk it out, do some self reflection, and that can really help you move forward. The second step here on how to fail forward is we really want to identify the lesson. This is where we're going to get a little more introspective. Ask yourself what worked, what didn't, what would I do differently next time? Really go back and process what the hiccup was so you'll be prepared and it's that much easier to bounce back. Realize that every failure is a case study and what to adjust. If you can approach failures, perceived failures, uh, from a stance of curiosity, you are going to be more bound and determined to bounce back than ever. Instead of taking it as a personal affront and being like, I can't believe that this happened. I'm a miserable person. I'm a failure. Getting all dramatic about it. Look at it with curiosity. Well, what an interesting switch up. All right, universe. All right, you're playing hard to get. I got you. I got you. Um, let's check it out. What worked this time, what didn't, so I know that when I reach success, I'll do it better than ever, right? You kind of have to have a little bit of that brush it offedness to help you get through it. And yes, I should probably trademark that official term. Step 3 in how to fail forward is you want to pivot and try again. So, like we talked about before, the most successful people take action even after failure. An example, let's talk about business rebranding is so common. It's insane. There are so many businesses that rebrand on the yearly, even truly, um, and become even more successful. So think about Netflix pivoting from DVD rentals to streaming. That you want to talk about changing the world? That changed the world. Um, don't think of it as I got to shut down the business because something's going wrong. Say, okay, all right, we're gonna pivot. We're gonna pivot, and we're gonna come back stronger than ever. Um, Okay, so step 4 on how to fail forward. So let's recap the steps really quick. We want to, number 1, process the emotions. Don't dwell too long. Number 2, identify the lesson. Number 3, pivot and try again. And then number 4 is going to be build mental toughness. This is where that grit, that dedication, that grind, that drive, all the woke bro stuff comes in. This is kind of where we got to channel that a little bit for us. Is we need to build some mental toughness. Remind yourself. This is like one of my favorite quotes lately. I've survived every failure so far. I can survive this too. Like, just be like, yeah, I have made it through 100% of my embarrassing moments and my roadblocks and my stumbles. Guess what? This is going to be no different because I always get back up and I always come back stronger. Resilience exercises like gratitude practices, affirmations, visualization, things where you are learning to appreciate, learning to reframe, those are going to help you build that mental toughness as well. And I mean, also, you can always contact me. I'll give you a nice little pep talk to help you get back on your feet again. I do want to present you with a challenge, though. I would love you this week to, well, the week of whenever you're listening to this, to look at one of your past failures and write down 3 things that it taught you. Once you have established those 3 things that it's taught you, I want you to think of one action step that you can take to move forward. I know. In something that you thought that you failed and you probably placed on the back burner, I want you to grab it again. Bring it front and center, baby. Think about 3 things that it taught you and then figure out one step that you can take to move forward with that endeavor. Because just because something didn't go right the first time doesn't mean it's not going to go right at all. That's so silly. If you think about all the successful people we talked about before that would have just thrown in the towel after their first mishap, that's crazy. I keep saying this, but the world would be a different place. It really would. Okay, so now I want to talk about my personal journey with failing forward. Some of you may know I kind of had a physical and mental transformation probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I was able to change my life and my lifestyle. And because of that, I not only gained strength, I gained resilience, I lost a lot of weight, I lost a lot of self limiting beliefs that I had. Truly, it changed my life. Um, in the span of like 2 years, which I think was, I would say that's fair. That's a fair timeline of when the full transformation took place. My life had done a complete 180. I was not close to the same person that I was when I had started that journey. And the funny thing is, one thing that I think about so much is I'm a perfectionist. And I always tell myself that, or I always have told myself, I always had the belief that if I don't have the perfect body, I don't deserve to find joy in working out. Or if I'm not entirely knowledgeable on a subject, I don't deserve to learn about that subject and find joy in that. If I am not incredibly popular or successful, I don't deserve to really find joy and solace in a big friend group. If I do not have enough money, I don't deserve to enjoy going out and buying myself something nice. So, like, I've always had, let's emphasize the had here because this is something that I've worked on a lot. This idea that if I'm not 100% perfect at something, I somehow don't deserve to even be within that realm. And that's so silly of me. So, something that was really scary for me is when I started this journey, I had to like come to terms with that. And there were so many times that I had to kind of flip that notion on its head. I did not have my ideal body, but guess what? I stepped into the gym for the first time. I did not have any knowledge of food and nutrition and how to adequately nourish my body. But guess what? I tried. And there were so many times, y'all, I think about it now and I am able to laugh at it. But there were so many times that I'm sure I looked real wacky in the gym doing some, crazy out there movement for the first time, or sometimes where I thought I was doing right by myself nutritionally, and it was probably uh, somewhat short of a dumpster fire. There's all these things that I could have just thrown the towel in and been like, this isn't working. I'm done. I'm just going to go back to my old life. But I knew that there was so much at stake. I knew that when I started this journey, I had crippling ADHD, anxiety. I was incredibly depressed. At the time, I didn't know that I was dealing with a chronic illness that was tied to inflammation. And I just knew in my heart that there was too much at risk. I could not put in the towel. I had never been so consistent in my life. I had never respected myself enough to follow through with something. And so throughout this journey, there were so many times that I wanted to just throw in the towel. I wanted to say, this is a failure. I'm done. But I knew I owed it to myself. I kept telling myself every week, I've never been this far. I've never done something this consistently. I've never been this successful at something. So why don't I just keep trying? Because I guarantee if I made it from last week to now, I can make it from now to next week. And it was just such a cool thing in my life. I really learned to pivot. I learned that it's okay to stumble. I learned that it's okay to not know everything and to try anyways because you deserve that as a human. I learned so many things. And it was just it was a really pivotal time for me, and it taught me a lot about failure. I want y'all to know that every failure you experience is going to be part of your success story. And the chapter that you're living in right now, it might feel tough, it might feel unbearable. You might have every urge to throw in the towel and go back to the way life was before, but let me tell you, please keep going. You are still writing your story, and it's going to be one hell of a story. Guys, I want to recap our takeaways here. Please remember that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the journey. And resilience is built through experience. We don't want you to fear failure, we want you to embrace it. And my favorite, the most successful people have failed. And the difference between them and the people that are not successful is they kept going. I am begging you to start seeing failure differently. The next time something doesn't go as planned, instead of saying I failed, say I'm failing forward. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go out and be your best self. If today's episode resonated with you, I would love to keep the conversation going. Like I said before, shoot me an email, message me on social media, with your biggest takeaway or a story of how you failed forward. And please do not forget to subscribe and to leave a review. It helps me more than you know, and it helps more people to find sharing success. I just want you guys to remember that success is never about failing. It's about getting back up and trying again. Please keep failing forward, and I'll see y'all next time on Sharing Success. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Sharing Success. If you enjoyed what you listened to today, I'd love it if you could take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel for even more inspiring content, leave a review for the podcast, or share this episode with someone who could use a little motivation today. Your support means the world and helps me to keep growing this amazing community. And as always, remember to keep striving, keep sharing, and keep succeeding. I'll see you next time.